Hey, what's going on, everyone? And welcome to the channel. My name's Nick Corona, and this is a real-time drone flight. Sorry for the beeping, that's just what it's like when you take off. The sensors are automatically on, and you can't squelch the beeping, and you can't change the thresholds. All you can do is go into sport mode or get away from obstacles. Anyways, right now we're inside the DJI Mavic 2 Zoom, and we're gonna do a little bit of desert exploring. I'm doing this video as a screen record so you guys can see my stats and get a real feel for what it's like to fly through one full battery of the Mavic. You just saw the takeoff, and we're gonna go ahead and fly until we land. Let's talk about what I'm doing right now. I'm flying around in GPS mode. That means all the sensors are enabled. And you'll see the little blue icon on the left, the APAS. You have to manually turn that on every time, and what that does is it uses the sensors to not only stop you from hitting obstacles and let you know where they are, but to actually maneuver your drone around those obstacles. When you enable this mode, it slows your cruising speed down just a little bit more, so it's kind of a nice trick. It's like you have 4 speeds. You have sport mode, GPS mode, tripod mode, and GPS mode with APAS turned on. I use it because although I can see the drone across the field, there's bushes and shrubs everywhere, and you just don't want to get hung up in one. And by having this on, it'll just kind of maneuver me around one if I accidentally get too close. Also, it's just a really nice sweet spot between tripod mode, which I feel like is just a little too slow for what I'm doing, and I want it to maneuver me around objects if there are any, and GPS mode is just kind of fast to where you might have a hard time going slow, just, the sticks are really sensitive. So next, let's just go ahead and talk about the video mode that I'm in right now. I pretty much always like to be recording in case something awesome happens, but you might notice looking up at the top there, I'm in 1080p/40. So the reason that I'm in 1080p is so that I can zoom in further. You can actually zoom in twice as far with this drone, and when you're exploring, that's just super duper useful. Also, the file sizes are much smaller, so if you're going to be out for a full day or if your memory is limited, there's a pretty big difference between the 4K and 1080, and we've made videos about this before, but it's pretty hard to tell the difference. The 4K is definitely better. But anyways, let's talk about our settings next. You might notice that, we're in auto mode, and the white balance is also set to auto. It does a pretty good job, and one of the reasons that I would be in auto mode in a situation like this is because when you're flying with the zoom lens, it actually does do an optical zoom in there with moving parts, so the lighting kind of changes, and you'll notice that when you zoom in, the shutter speed changes to accommodate for it. So if you are not in auto mode, you're gonna get lightning and darkening effects when you zoom in and out. And that can be annoying for when you're just trying to explore or do something like this. The manual modes are for more cinematic things, like if you wanted to set it, for just a zoomed in shot or a zoomed out shot. It really can do some wonky things when you zoom in and out in manual mode. Maybe it's an effect you want. And then all the way over on the right side, autofocus control, which we're pretty much always in. And going along this wash, we found a little bum fort. There's a little campfire in there and a sleeping bag and some boxes. And this is a perfect example of when you want the zoom. When I first found this, I was kind of thinking, I don't know if someone's around, and if you want to get a close look, you'd actually have to lower your drone down there, and I didn't really want to take that risk. So it's nice to be 45 feet up and be able to zoom in that far and check the situation out. After a year of flying with this, that's the point that I try and make in a lot of my videos, is I don't think there's an amount of quality that I would rather have in exchange for being able to zoom in this far. It just has so many uses on top of just cool shots, just real practical things like this flight right here. So The main thing that I'm looking for out here, by the way, is coyotes, rattlesnakes. There's wild boars in this field. We're kind of on the outskirts of North Phoenix, just kind of like sparse neighborhoods at this point before it just goes into the open desert. Up along the top, you'll notice I have great satellite connection. We're connected to 16 satellites at this point, and you'll notice that I'm about 1,500 feet away from myself, but the signal is dropping pretty low. I'm at half transmitter and half HD, and you can kind of start to see it in the screen recording a little bit, getting a little jittery and laggy. And that is the effect of just there being a lot of bushes and shrubs and trees between us. So you can fix that by going up. And sometimes you have to, which is just one more situation where it's nice to have the zoom. Just kind of checking out this pile of sticks here. I couldn't really tell what it was, seeing if it was another fort. At some point you could tell it's not. And keep in mind, when you're flying live, it's definitely much more difficult to see the fine details that we can see right now. But it's definitely, really nice to have that zoom just to get in and check, because all these little quick zoom-ins I'm doing would be a pretty tough maneuver if you couldn't zoom in and wanted to get that close. And then at this point, look at my signal. Probably wouldn't be able to get that low. So as I'm flying out through the wash, I'm definitely doing some maneuvering on the back end to stay within line of sight of the drone. And here we can just see, zooming in some more, which is just really helpful. I think that ended up just being a piece of trash. You always have to keep in mind too that the height is from where you took off. So in a situation like this where you're kind of going uphill, you might not really be 62 feet up, which is just one more reason why I really like that APAS feature. It's very nice. Another quick tip for some of you, I have an ND filter on, but if you find your footage just being insanely bright, I have found if you go minus, you hit the, negative, what are we going to call it, the EV, you lower the auto brightness a couple points, 1 or 2 times, that can really help your footage. It really actually helped the Mavic Mini a lot. We don't have an ND filter for it yet, but by just lowering the standard level of brightness for the auto setting by, I think, -3, it just made a world of difference. So here you see me lagging out. You see the signal drop to 1 bar for a second and the HD get low, and my go-to is just to go straight up at that point. So you can see we're going up. Go up a few hundred feet, and as you go up, your signal just skyrockets. Obviously it's just getting you away from Wi-Fi, giving you a more clear shot, getting you away from any interference. And this is one really cool thing, is you can just continue on because we have the zoom. So we still are down looking at the ground. This would be good enough to spot like a coyote or something. Got a BMX track over on the right there. It's really nice also to have that map in the bottom left hand corner. It's kind of the new orientation, you just have that green line letting you know where you're at. It's pretty weird because I grew up at a time where you're always concerned about where's your tail and the nose, and it just isn't really like that anymore with drones. They pretty much fly themselves. So right here we're at about just a little bit over 9 minutes and still 60% battery. So you'll notice when you're not flying around too crazy, the battery, lasts quite a while. I'd say this flight here definitely represents an average flight for me, and I just want you guys to really see what you can expect, because we talk a lot about how, what DJI says a battery will get and what a battery really gets are just clearly not the same. They must test theirs in a room with no wind on a brand new fully charged battery and going from 100% to 0, which you can't do with these batteries. They want you to land at 20%, and it's not just for safety of don't lose your drone and run out of batteries, which I think a lot of people probably think, and rightfully so. But the thing to keep in mind is these are really high quality LiPo smart batteries. And one thing to understand about these batteries is if they ever do get to a true 0%, it's really bad for them. They can swell up, they can catch on fire, they can be completely destroyed. And that is why it doesn't really want the battery to ever get that low. And if you're even in an emergency situation where you're at 0%, it'll keep flying for a little bit, but it warns you that, hey, this is probably going to permanently damage your battery. And that's just how it is. These batteries even decharge themselves over the course of weeks if you don't use them, because it's just not healthy for them to hold a full charge, and it's all part of maintaining your batteries. You don't want to let them sit for too long. You want to keep them charged, even when you're not using them, so they can decharge. It's going to definitely help your batteries last a lot longer. I kept mine charged up after I lost my first drone just to make sure that they stayed healthy, and they all seem to be just fine. I'd say I get the same amount of time out of my new battery as my batteries that have over 100 flights on them. So this is pretty cool. It's a really beautiful day to be flying, and this is a new feature that they added where it says flight distance may exceed out of sight, line of sight, which is pretty cool to just kind of let people know that, hey, you need line of sight. One thing about it is it doesn't take into account where you've moved to, so that warning is based on my home position, which, by this point in time we've been flying for quite some time, and I've walked out into the field and I can still see the drone. So that's one little thing about it they could adjust, but it's still cool that it's there. Also, if you try and get rid of it, it doesn't go away, so I don't know if that's good or bad. But you can see here, about 5,000 feet away, and my signal's dropping pretty low. So this is realistic expectations for your drone. You guys see those videos of people flying miles and miles out, and I even have one. I have one where I fly this drone 4 miles out and 4 miles back. You cannot do that in residential areas. Wi-Fi is interference. There's just too much interference. You see it right here. That's about as far as I would ever be willing to go. Beyond, you shouldn't do that around residential areas just because line of sight. This is a little bit more deserty here, but if you were especially flying over people's houses and stuff, you don't make it very far. You don't get much more than a mile without a ton of interference. I'm sure it's different for each country, but at least here in America, that's what I've experienced everywhere. And then you get out in the open desert or an open area where there's no one living, and your range is exponentially better. But it definitely is not going to bend around mountains and trees, so keep that in mind. You want to try and keep a direct line to that drone. So at this point, I'm headed back. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see any coyotes today or any boars. I don't really know exactly where they're at, but I have seen them out here, and I do intend to find them. Wow, that was scary. Airplane just flew over us. This is a completely Class G unrestricted airspace, but there is an airport about 10 miles away from here, and sometimes they do come over shockingly low. So I'm always looking out for them, and it definitely puts in perspective how nice it would be to have that feature to let you know when there's airplanes approaching and where they are, especially helicopters. You see this waterway here, that's the Arizona CAP project, which essentially just brings water to the city, but helicopters inspect it and fly down it all the time, and it can be really scary because, it's really a weird feeling when a helicopter flies under your drone. So at this point, 40%, oh, Peter McKinnon. Cool. Of course I like what I'm making. I'm here with you guys. That's an easy one. I didn't even have to watch that video because I love this. At this point, 38% battery. I mean, we've done a ton of exploring, so I hope this really puts into perspective, how much stuff you can check out on one battery, and I have 2 more in my pocket. So this is just, just the starting point. And keep in mind, all these little laggy spots, anywhere where you see the footage kind of cutting out, you know, it's saving on the memory card in the drone, so I have a perfect copy of all this footage in a much higher quality. But yeah, I don't know, I think you guys will appreciate seeing this angle of it a little more, huh? Definitely let me know if you guys like this style of video. I noticed it's been much more popular lately, and you know, just thinking about it, it's fun to watch people fly like this. It's fun to watch it afterwards, it's fun to do it while you're doing it, and my favorite thing is when you watch it back and find something you didn't see the first time. So just one more reason to save all your drone footage. You know, personally, I'm always recording. Memory is free and cheap these days. At this point, you want to start kind of considering where your drone is and what you want to do for the end, because you're at 34% and I have my low battery alert set to 20%. And let me tell you guys ahead of time, you cannot stop that beep, and your controller starts beeping when your battery is low, and it's really embarrassing, and it lets everyone around you know what's going on and that you're flying a drone. So I try and be pretty close to myself when I am at that 20%. This is interesting. On my mini map you'll see an orange line, and you might encounter those sometimes, and it's like a enhanced warning flight area, so it's getting a little closer to the airport, and when you go past that point, it's essentially warning you to kind of look out for just things like obviously low planes taking off and landing at the airport. And I should probably mention it's a private airport, so we're talking about, you know, single person planes, biplanes, private jets, definitely no airliners or anything like that, which is a double-edged sword because it is much more difficult to see the little guys and hear them coming, and they come in a lot lower. You just really got to look out for them. So here you can really see how this wash works. They have these man-made walls where it kind of comes together for when it's really flooding through here, and I believe this is called Skunk Creek. It turns a little bit back into a creek from time to time, and the water starts flowing. It's pretty crazy how water just flows through the city. And this is a cool example of when it's just nice to have that zoom, you know? You see a truck or something over there and some people, and I want to see what they're doing, but I don't really want to get up in their face. It's nice to be able to just zoom in. So 26% battery, 25% battery. Like I said, that's when I'm super booking it back because I just can't stand the annoying beep. And also, I don't want to hurt my batteries. There's no reason to really push them. If you have 3 batteries, so what? Land at 25%, land at 20%, throw in your next battery. You know, unless you're like really squeezing every second out for some reason. That's pretty much why I have the extra batteries. So let me know what you guys thought of this video. If you would like to see more videos like this or something else you want to see. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider, just so you know we can keep more good content coming. The more of you that support me, the more of this we can make, and I see a lot more of it coming. I can't wait to see, you know, get my hands on, I guess I should say, one of these Mavic Air 2s, and I am just ecstatic for the Mavic Pro 3. I can't wait to start talking about it. I can't wait to get my hands on one. I'm already trying to decide what drone I should get next, and I don't know, especially after a video like this, I don't think I can get one without a zoom feature, so I really am having my fingers crossed for a 1-inch sensor with a zoom lens on the Mavic Pro 3. That would make my day. And you know, I don't even care if it's like only 4K, although I think they'll do 6 or 8. So anyways, thanks for hanging out with me, guys. That was just a little park fly, and we're at 19% battery, and you know that thing is beeping like crazy right now. Yeah, that's what you can expect out of one single Mavic flight. Thank you guys for coming along. Peace.